Nathan, you can go ahead and kick it off as more people might be joining here. Thank you, everyone who's hopped in thus far. This is so exciting.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, it is 12 o'clock. We want to honor everybody's time, but grateful for those that show up. We've got some new faces. We've got some old faces that have been around for the past couple of months, but really excited for this month's call with Thomas. Thomas is a Streamline author of ours. His book came out a couple of months ago, but we're just really excited to continue our conversations of just giving you guys some practical tools and tips on how to use your book and get it out and get it into the hands that need to have it and have your story. So I'm going to kick it over to Will, and he's going to kind of do a little bit more of a formal introduction with Thomas. But real quick, just want to remind everybody, if you could be on mute when we are during the coaching portion of what we're doing, and then there'll be time for questions. You'll be able to ask Thomas questions if you want to put it in the group chat or put it in the chat so you don't forget it. Like me, I usually, if I can't say it right away, I usually forget it. So put it in the chat, and then we'll make sure to get to it later on once we get to the question portion of our time today. So I'll go ahead and pass it to Will, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. Again, thanks, everyone. As y'all are joining, again, we're recording this call. If you need to hop off early or you know someone you want to share this link with after, we'll be sure to send out the link after to this call. But man, this is so fun for this all to come into fruition with Thomas, someone who is an author of a couple of books that are in the nonfiction realm. But then earlier this year, we got to help him write, edit, publish Dig, which is more of a fiction parable-based book that he did through Streamline. And we're just so grateful for who he is as an advocate of Streamline and what we do, but also just as a human. I mentioned in a couple things, whether it was our MailChimp blast, like Thomas is unique and so cool in that, different things like social media that maybe he doesn't utilize as much. Thomas is creative in the way that he engages relationships, leverages his network to get his book out there into the world. And so for a number of reasons, we're pumped to have him on the call. Thomas, thank you, man. But obviously, Thomas, you wouldn't be here if it weren't for Alex and making the original connection. So pumped for you guys to lead this thing and pumped for everyone to be on here.
Yeah, thanks so much, Will. Hello, everyone. My eyes are going back and forth from seeing Will's face, Alex's face, and now in the chat of people talking about Go Gators, Alabama Roll Tide. You got Mizzou. I'm just like cringing inside. I'm like, but I'm glad to be here. And one of the things that I definitely want to point out early on is, the reason why I picked you guys is, one, because of the personal relationship that I have with Alex. But I have to commend you guys there at Streamline because you guys were the only organization that just had a clear, concise cut strategy. And, it's nice as an author on the other side of the phone or other side of the camera, when you speak to somebody and they're like, we're going to get your book out in this time. These are going to be the steps. This is going to be the process. There's a manager, there's an editor, there's this person, there's this person. So to you guys for what you've built, who you are and what you're becoming and producing, man, my hat's off to you. And thank you so much.
Bro, Thomas, that means a ton. And the reason why he said he was cringing is you can see in the background, we can see a little bit of the helmet. Thomas is a former USC Trojan. We got any USC fans in the house out there? I don't know. Thomas, this is a tough crowd, it looks like. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all right.
But yeah, guys, seriously, when I said it in the bestseller group community on LinkedIn, and I really meant it. Like, I have had the chance, like many of you, to meet some amazing speakers and authors. And when I think about someone who's like the most genuine, and I've seen at a really high level perform at a high level with speaking, with writing books, it's Thomas Williams. And so, yeah, the reality is, the cool thing about today is, for many programs out there, this is like day one of college football. So by the end of this call, you're going to be ready to run through a brick wall. That's the reality. I got this brick wall behind me, didn't even plan it. And we had Thomas on the first day of college football season. So let's get it, baby. Just super excited about this. I guess, Thomas, let's start here. You had obviously a very successful career at USC. You then go to the NFL. You have just a really cool story. And now you're the author of 3 books. And obviously the one that you most recently published, Dig, amazing book for everyone that's listening. But you didn't, you already have all this success. Like, you didn't need to do a 3rd book. Like, what was it? Like, I guess why? Maybe a little bit of your background, and then what made you want to do this 3rd book and why you're so passionate about this message?
Yeah. One of the things that I've just like probably everybody out there, from early childhood to sports to now life as a 38-year-old leader of the house, dad. I think I'm constantly trying to push that needle of how can I get better? What do I need to grow? How do I need to develop? And about 5 years ago, when I met John Gordon in person, I handed him my book of Permission to Dream, which is my first book that I wrote. And it's how to help middle school and high school kids identify their purpose and their dream, and also being able to identify obstacles that they might incur as they continue to, pursue their dreams and go on their life's journeys. And John was just very honest in his John Gordon way with, positivity, optimism, and belief. Told me that kind of, Thomas, you didn't win a Super Bowl. You didn't, you didn't go to the Hall of Fame. You're not just this huge name like somebody out there, like a Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Tim Tebow. He's like, so you're going to have a very small niche for people who are going to read your book. I mean, that's just the reality of the story. And he said, but if you write a story within a story, then you'll be able to captivate everyone. And I'll never forget that. That was January 1st, 2018. And so 2020 comes around, and I was making my bed, and God was like, hey, I need you to become a person of having more depth. And I'll never forget. I was like, great, God, I think I have a lot of depth. Like, when we talk, we can go deep or shallow or surface or whatever it is. And then I just remember God telling me that what I'm about to take you through in your life is going to give you more depth. I need you to write about the story, but not about it from your perspective. I need you to help people understand, in order to go to the places that they want to go and get to, is that they have to dig. It's kind of like my daughter's favorite song, Will, and Alex, you guys would probably relate to this, having kids in the same age range, is that it's we're going on a bear hunt. You can't go over it. You can't go under it. You just have to go through it. And so that's exactly the message of Dig. And that's why I wrote the story of, you're going to have to face things that you might not be comfortable. And as you guys know, who have read the story, is that Darren, who's the main character, there's somebody special in particular in his life that sees how he's dealing with life's adversity. But it's not about it's not about what's happening to Darren. It's about how Darren explores it, how Darren experiences it. And then once he experiences it, then he's able to teach and preach to his brother through his actions, through his life's adversities.
Yeah, it's incredible. And yeah, the way that you wrote this book in a way of, for all you guys listening, if you haven't read it, it's a fable, right? So it has these leadership principles, these awesome lessons in a story. And so that's just something to think about as all of you leverage your audiences, whether it's, fiction, nonfiction. Like Thomas has found this way to tell these awesome stories that when he goes into a business, he goes into a school, people can resonate. And Thomas, just something I just want to publicly say, that I have so much respect for you as a keynote speaker and as a man, as a father. One thing that I would love to hear your story, if you'd be willing to share with everyone, when it comes to social media, because a lot of us, I think at times, are stressed. I know I feel it, I'm not posting enough, or I'm not putting myself out there, because there is this weird balance, right? Of when you are an author and a speaker, you are you have to in some ways put your stuff out there so people know that you're doing it, but you also don't want to come across as it's all about me. You've done it in an amazing way. And I would love to just, if you'd be willing to share what that's looked like for you, because, and even the ways that specifically your business has grown, because that's what's super inspiring, just your faith that you have, man, if you'd be willing to share that.
Yeah. So I think, just like you kind of alluded to, Alex, in 2019, in the beginning of 2019, I hired a social media person, because I already just had this conflict internally, not with social media, and I have no judgment towards social media of anybody who uses it, but I just had an internal conflict. So I hired somebody, and I was paying them monthly, and they were posting for me, and they were doing a phenomenal job. And so it was in October of 2019 where I just remember having this urge. And the urge for me was, why not do something different? Why not do something new? And then I just started writing, and I remember journaling one day and thinking to myself that, privacy over popularity. And I just, as clear as day, I can remember that, privacy over popularity. And then I continued to explore that feeling and that thought. And I just would take these walks with God. And God was like, get off social media. If you focus on your family, I'll bring the world to you. And this was right around November of 2019. And I'm like, well, God, how am I going to be able to get my message out? How am I going to be able to solicit my service? How are people going to know, watch my YouTube or this video, or being able to get any type of examples of me speaking? And God's clearly said, focus on your family and I'll bring the world to you. And so for me, man, I also think, Will, and Alex, like one of the things that I've really had a hard time with is that I was noticing that I was doing stuff because it would give me an opportunity to take a picture. So I was going to a nonprofit organization and I was, volunteering there. And I was like, well, I got to get a picture because I got to post it. Or I was going to golf charity events and I was taking pictures with the celebrities, or even some of my friends I would take pictures with and I would post it, not because I wanted to capture the memory, but because I wanted to create content. And so for me, I stopped posting December 31st, 2019. And I keep my social media still live on that because I want to be able to share the story in a few more years about the testimony. So 2019, December 31st, I stopped. I completely delete it from my phone. And I don't know about you guys, but anytime you stop doing something, it's especially if it's something habitual, you find yourself doing it. So when I deleted it from my phone, I'd be, please don't judge me. I'd be at a red light and I'm looking for Instagram and I couldn't find it. Or I'd be in a waiting room, right, at the doctor's or the dentist, and I'm looking for Instagram. And it was almost like a ha-ha way of being like, ha, gotcha. You can't go any amount of time without Instagram, social media. And so 2020 comes around, happens. I had one speaking engagement, which was in January. And I was like, all right, this is going to be my year. And obviously the pandemic happened. And so what I decided to do is I started to dive into my own personal greatness. And that's when, being a member of John Gordon's speaking team, that's when I started going to all the virtual events. If I'm at home and I'm at lockdown and I'm going to hang out, I might as well learn something. So I just went to all of the trainings where Julie and Amy and John and all of our other great team members would be. And I just started to learn. And I said, teach me the ways. And so 2021 comes around. And in 2021, I did something really cool. It was April of 2021. I just wrote down on a piece of paper, just like a sticky note, just like this. And I said, how much money did I need to make? And it was to pay off like a car and a couple of like credit cards. It was like $19,000. Can I be cool? Can I be super transparent? Is everybody cool with that?
Bro, give us the numbers.
All right. So I go, I need 19,000. I got to pay off my car and I also want to pay off like some credit cards. And I write down 19,000. So in April, a client that I had been quote unquote forwarding since 2018. No, I'm sorry. Since the year before 2020, they call me back. Hey, can you do some leadership training? Mind you, I'd never trained anybody. I'd only been a keynote speaker, but I've been going to all of these different seminars through John's team with Julie and with Amy. And I go, I think I can kind of do it with the power of positive leadership. They said, great. What's your fee? I was like, 10,000. They were like, all right, done. I was like, what? 10,000? It's that easy? So they signed me up for 4 sessions. They wanted me to do middle managers. They wanted me to do supervisors, operators, and I think the executive team. So there was 4 1-hour sessions. I go 10 grand, 4 hours. Okay, got it. So I put together a presentation. I go through my first 2 sessions. After the second session, their point of contact at the company calls and goes, hey, we're getting tremendous feedback. You're doing great. Do you have any more sessions? I'm like, yeah, I do. They're like, but we're not going to be able to pay you 10,000. What, can you help us out? I go, yeah, let's do 8. They're like 8. So literally within a couple of weeks, I hit $18,000, the number that I wrote down. The reason why I say that, because the Bible says, write the vision and make it plain, right? And so you have not because you ask not. And so I wrote it down, and in that day, I got my 18,000. Now, what I want to talk about with the social media thing and how prevalent it is to what God told me. And again, I can't tell anybody how to live their life. It is understanding that when God gives you a word, your obedience and your diligence and your sacrifices will allow you to get the fruits and reap the rewards of that. And so, ever made speaking with no social media. Now come to 2022, still no social media. God never gave me the green light to get back on social media. I doubled the triple that I made in 2021. So I basically would triple the double or double the triple through speaking, because one of the things that I want to prove, and I'm very, very passionate about this, is that you do not need social media to become successful and rich? Like, what are your main goals? And my main two goals from speaking from with a gift, with purpose, with passion is two things: to make an impact and to generate an income. To make an impact, generate income. Because for me, when I was on social media heavy, I thought I was above who I was, which made me arrogant, which made me conceited, and I thought things were beneath me. And so for me, it's amazing to go give a keynote, come back home and have to be chored with changing a dirty diaper from our 1-year-old daughter who just turned 1. I think that there's strength in humility. And so, Alex, before we go to the next point, I was in Bali speaking at the Indonesian Human Resource Summit this June, so a few months ago. And I was walking on a beach, Seminyak, in Bali, Indonesia. And God stopped me. I'm walking for about an hour, and then I just stop, and then I just start weeping. And the reason why I was weeping is because in 2019, I was in Asia, Thailand, and in Bali. And that's where I got the clear direction to focus on my family, and God would bring the world to me. And God said, see what I tell you. I have no social media, and I'm speaking in Bali, where English is a second, third language, to 1,100 people. And God said, because you did what I wanted you to do, I did what you asked me to do. And that's my story about social media.
Dude, that's incredible. I mean, to not only triple your income and then double your triple, I think it kind of cut out a little bit, but yeah, you said triple your income and then you doubled the triple. That's like so rare to do that as a speaker. And the fact that you did it with no social media is just unbelievable. I remember I heard you on a podcast, on John Gordon's Positive You podcast. And I remember having you, Thomas, on my podcast back in 2018, which is wild to think about how fast time is going. But yeah, one thing that I picked up that you said earlier in this call is you said you got this feedback from an event planner, right? And they came up to you, gave you this feedback. You're extreme, like when it comes to like learning, growing, I've tried to model what you've done, man. But one thing that I think you do really well is you send out, can you talk about the surveys? Because I think a lot of times as keynote speakers, as authors, you put this content out, you don't really know what happens. You don't see the fruit of all the time of someone saying, oh, great job. But you do something that's really intentional that actually leads to more business. Would you mind talking about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, as you know, with John and the company, there's so many different services and there's so many different products and packages. And I think as you grow and develop as a communicator, one of the greatest things is being able to add more value and to increase your impact. And so it's just like going to a movie. This is how I think about speaking, is if I go to a movie, it was great and I might be inspired or I might be entertained for the night, maybe a couple of days. But how is it that we can create rejuvenating impact and touch points? And so what I did was a couple of years ago, I created a survey that I would give to the point of contacts at the different events. And I would ask them a couple of questions because my main goal is to create impact and also create income. So for me as the speaker, and then also make sure that you add value to the people that you serve. And so I would create a survey. And the best thing that I could do with this survey is give to the people as soon as I was done speaking. And I would ask them, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate today's session? I also ask from what I talked about, what was the most inspiring or impactful, because that's going to give me feedback on what stuck with that group. When I go back, I want to make sure that I don't give them the same message. And I also don't talk about the same things. I'm also going to say, would you like to learn, or what else would you like to learn about? Like, I want to learn about time management. I want to learn about, how to teach your kids how to walk or whatever it is, because then that's going to give me, again, more ammunition for the time I go back. And then I'm going to say, would you like to learn more about this session? Simple. Yes or no. It's a 50-50. Yes or no. And so, and then below that, I have additional comments. And so what I do is in every single room that I go into, I hand that immediately. That's the trick. Most of the time people go, okay, I'm going to give this to the point of contact, hand it out over the next week or the next 10 days or the next 2 weeks. I'm not there in 7 days, 15 days. My impact happened over the last 45 minutes to the last 3 hours. So we need to make sure we bottle up that energy, those emotions, as well as what was taking place, so that when I get these results and surveys back, I'm going to send them off to the point of contacts and the team there, whatever the client is. And I'm going to say, hey, sir, ma'am, 86% of your attendees said that they thought the content was excellent. 75% said that they would like to learn more or would like to, continue to go down this path, which then you've given me the green light to tell you that, hey, let's figure out a way that we can do more business. How can we do more workshops? How can we do more trainings? How could we do more speaking engagements? Now with the world, post-COVID, how can we do even something virtual? And so with those surveys, I just learned that I can utilize that, not as saying to the CEO or the C-level person, I think I should come back. I'm showing you that your people think I should come back. And this is what they want the next time I come back. And this is what you guys can use at the top in order to inspire, motivate, and continue the momentum.
I love that. And Bo had just asked in the chat, do you feel like the speech survey is really helpful for like your future talks and planning that content? Would you say as well?
No, I think, and Bo, that's such a great question. Where I feel like the best things for me and my future talks, and I just started doing it now, one of the things that I want to do, instead of just going and talking, Thomas is going to come talk to students. I'm working very diligent right now on messages. What's your message and what's your theme? And so I stole this from John, is that every Wednesday morning, I take about an hour and a half to 2 hour walk with headphones. And I'm just asking God, okay, I got these speaking engagements, what's coming up? I literally take my phone right here. I go to the note section and I go, like I have a talk to an insurance company next week. So I literally got insurance company. Okay, I'm going to use this story. Okay, this is the point. This is the principles. And so I download that way for additional, when I say additional comments or, what else would you guys like to learn about? That's for me with them specifically, not for me to create content, but that's for me to create for them specifically. So if I look and everybody says, what's a time waster? How do you stay focused? How do you, how are you able to judge or get, outcomes or results, things like that, then that's going to help me with the buzzwords that I should use when I go back to them. But one of the best things was that survey. And here's another secret to that. I shouldn't even say secret. This is another proactive step to that, is that before I go into my speaking engagement or a training, I already have a follow-up conversation scheduled with a client, because what we know, everything that happens, an event planner or a CEO or the VP or the person that's the gatekeeper, they don't have time. They did the event, they're done. See you later. So I want to get on your calendar as soon as this event is, before this event starts, I want to already have something scheduled, because in the back of my mind, I already know that I'm going to send you these surveys. Now, you could come back and say I sucked, or you could say the content wasn't relevant, and that's okay. Then after, I'm just going to get their conversation and I'm going to say, hey, what did you think? And then that's also an opportunity to get the written testimonials. I mean, I'm sure Will and Alex, you guys talk so much about written testimonials, but I'll definitely, if we do Q&A at the end of this, I can share that as well. But that's pretty much the main focus and reason for the surveys.
Yeah, that's great. And one thing, Bo, that you brought up that I think is good to even mention, a lot of times, and Thomas, I don't know if you use this, but I utilize a pre-event survey as well. So it's like, a form that pretty much says, hey, for me to earn a 10 out of 10, what do I need to do to come in here? And so you actually get their responses on, hey, we want you to talk on these topics. So then what's cool if you add what Thomas is doing, you have the pre-event survey saying, hey, this is what we want. Thomas crushes it. Then he's like, hey, do you want more? So it's like a cool call to action. And so Thomas, you just moved from California to Colorado. And so you had big life, family transitions, exciting stuff. That's, I guess, being a keynote speaker, author, you can kind of live wherever. And so next August 3rd through 6th, the National Speakers Association is in, I think, Aurora, Colorado. So we're going to be sending out a lot of
down the street.
Right down the street from you. So we're going to be playing all kinds of meetups. And yeah, everyone on this call can obviously meet Thomas. We'll be there next year. We're excited for that. But
so cool.
Yeah, it was an amazing conference. John Gordon was the headliner keynote. Met so many amazing people there. So I recommend everyone to go to that. We'll send out more info. But, Thomas, being a football player at USC, I mean, you're hanging out with Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, all these amazing people. You were there just during the awesome days of USC. you go to the NFL, now you have these books. I think a lot of people on this call, whether they have a book or not, it's almost intimidating at times when you publish a book. It's like, how do I get this thing out there? And I know we're going to get into a specific way that Will has a picture for here in a little bit, but when you think about how you get your book out there, whether it's, whether it's speaking events or it's like, what has been some of the wins that you've been able to find to like, hey, I'm going to leverage this book to now make money, on speaking or consulting or coaching, training? What does that look like for you?
I think it starts even at a smaller scale than that, Alex. I feel like one of the things a book does is it validates you as an expert. So it is your business card, right? It's a $3.97 business card that you're going to leave with somebody, so that when they're at home, in the office, in the kitchen, they're going to say, oh my gosh, Will Severns is an author of this, and he's an expert at this. So I think there's that first and foremost, because you're not just somebody who's going to come and talk, you're a subject matter expert. And so that's what being an author does. I think secondly, what it does is it gives the client options for payment. So some organizations don't or have a limited budget for a speaker, but they have an even larger budget for resources. So these are your pamphlets, these are your bracelets, your coffee mugs, your water bottles, your whatever it is, as well as books. And so I've learned that maybe there might be a client that says, hey, we have $1,000 for a speaker, but we'll buy 500 copies of your book. And for you, because what your cost of goods is, and you also know what the differentiation between how much they take and then how much you can make, you can say, okay, I'm going to make $7 off each book, which is still a discount from what Amazon's going to charge them, right? So I think that there's that play. Like I remember I can't even remember, it was a while ago, that an entire school said, hey, we can't pay you at all as a speaker, but we'll buy one copy of your book for every single student. And it was like 1,800 students. And so I was like, well, I can charge $5 a book on top of the cost. And so that's 5 times 1,800. You do the math. So that was my speaking fee, and I still gave them an incredible discount. So that's been, something for me that I've also leveraged and taken advantage of. I think another really cool thing, Alex, and I'm starting to do it now, is I'm going to these speaking engagements and I'm leaving. So I'm going to a company and they have 7 different departments, or they have 5 different locations. And so the people who are there on site, I'm leaving a couple of books behind, and I'm getting the content at the end of, hey, what's your call to action from what we talked about or what I talked about? What's one of your takeaways? And so people are raising their hands. So 3 people, here's a copy of a book, here's a copy of a book. And so when they take it and they read it, 1, it gives me an opportunity to maybe get a review from them on Amazon. 2, it gives an opportunity for me to leave a piece of myself with them. So they'll take it home. They know people. So the people they know might be looking for a speaker, might be looking for, somebody on a podcast. It's just so many ways to, leave your mark, as well as your impact in the dent that you had inside of their journey when you're not even in the room.
That's so good, bro, because it's like a lot of times I think speakers or authors get so hung up on the fee, like, oh, what's my fee? Their budget's below my fee. But what you figured out, and what's so smart about that, is that if you go, let's say you go to a local insurance company and they buy 100 copies of your book, well, that out of that 100 people, there's probably a manager or regional manager in there that if they get your book, it's signed, whatever, and they're like, man, this guy's legit. Well, guess what? The next time they have a regional meeting, who comes to their mind? And it's you. And I have seen that firsthand in my business. You have as well. Like, I just vividly remember when I first came out with the sale, getting an email from a massive insurance company out of Wisconsin. And she said, I just read your book. I want this message to go to every one of my team members. So she buys like 500 of them. And it's like, at that point, to your point, Thomas, it's like, then when they're coming to you, then you can name your price. Like that was the highest speaking engagement I've ever got. And it's only because she read the book, right? And so I think that's a great message that you just said, man, because it's like the book is the hook. You're utilizing it. You're getting in the right hands of people, and God will allow, determine who needs to get it and see it, and who's going to bring you in to speak.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Will, I think this could be a cool moment to transition just to that specific picture. Will, if you want to talk about that, because yeah, Thomas did something really cool that I think will be awesome for us to learn from.
Yes, picture is in the queue. But speaking of queue, if anyone has a question to unmute yourself, you can raise your hand. You've got the little this sign down at the bottom. Maybe someone wants to raise their hand to ask Thomas a question. Yes, Mark, if you want to unmute yourself while at the same time keep your eyes on the road, brother.
Well, I pulled over for a minute.
Okay.
So, hey, Thomas, listen, man, really good stuff, right? And your passion and your call is evident. And I want to commend you, number one, for focusing on the family. I mean, I'd love to learn how you sensed God's discernment to do that. But that's probably for more of a one-on-one conversation. But my question is, as you go into these organizations that are non-biblically based and non-faith believing, how do you find ways to weave in your faith into your message and yet still come across as someone who can be relatable and not the pastor standing up there talking to them?
Awesome question, man. We could definitely connect offline. One of the things, Mark, to answer the first part, it was I was in conflict. And the reason why I was in conflict is because God was trying to tell me something and I wasn't listening. So I kept asking the same question in a different way. So once I was obedient, then he says, your obedience is greater than sacrifice. Don't sacrifice for the business. Be obedient to what I'm telling you to do for your family, right? And so biblically, what was the very first thing that he told Adam to do, right? Like, here's your land, and then I'm going to provide somebody for you to rule it and then take dominion. And so that's part. The second part about going into organizations that aren't faith-based, the best thing that we have, especially as believers, if you've gone to church, you've read the Bible, you've been stewarded over, you understand scripture in a way that it doesn't come across as in Luke 17:43. I ain't got to say that. Because see, here's the greatest thing, that when we go to a place and somebody is a believer, they come up to you afterward and say, you're a believer, aren't you? Because you know the word in such a way where you don't have to feed them in the way of a Bible. You give them an opportunity to feed them in such a way where it's, the scriptures of my sheep know my voice and a stranger they will not follow. And so when the sheep have been shepherded, they understand, ooh, that's my language. But somebody else, you could say, my favorite quote is, as a man thinketh, and they're like, oh man, I read that book, not understanding you told them about the Bible. And so it's an awesome way to be able to, I believe, do like what Jesus said, is that he told parables and didn't give instructions. And so when you tell a parable, people pick that up and they sense that. And so one of the cool things is that I tell people I got done playing football and I found out that football was just my passion to lead me to my purpose, even though I thought I quit my purpose. And then that's what told me about the passion. So then people start, ooh, tell me more. And so for me is that I feel like I study the word enough. I'm not a theologian and I'm not a pastor. I'm not a bishop. I think I study the word enough and I allow the word to speak to me so that when I tell the story from my story, people go, ooh, didn't that happen in the Bible? Or, hey, where did you get that quote from? Because sometimes I'll say my favorite quote is, one of my favorite quotes is, boom, one of my favorite books is, and they go, what book was that? What? Now you've given me an opportunity and an invitation to share with you exactly where it came from.
Right. Well done. Thank you.
That's good. We've got a couple of questions in the chat. One super practical from Gavin, going back to kind of the surveys, and he was asking like what modality was the survey? Was it paper, email? Like what do you use, Thomas?
I use paper because I want to get it. I want to get it to you within the last 5 minutes. I want to get it to you now. I'm trying to look because I just got sent like 50 of them. And it was cool because even in some of them, it's like Thomas needs to be the next retreat speaker. And it was like 5 people, which was really awesome. So I personally like paper because it's real quick. There's like 3 yes or no's on there. So you're just circling. And I can now take it with me. If I leave it to you and it's electronic, let me do it later. I'll get to it when I can. This is paper form. This is legible. I bring it home, I scan it, and in the same day or within 24 hours, that's when I email it back to the point of contact wherever they are. And I'll say, hey, it was great. Thanks so much. Awesome. I found these things really interesting that your team left. Some of the comments, and I think there's an opportunity for you guys to leverage this for their impact and then for their inspiration and motivation to continue throughout.
That's good. And then last question in the queue, and then I think we'll push off to Will talking through kind of what you use for a little bit of a marketing strategy that might be a little bit unique. But this question comes from Kate, and she's asking, how do you integrate your book specifically into your keynotes?
So what is your book about? And I'll tell Alex this right now. This is funny. So I didn't have, when we first started talking, I didn't have I guess I had a destination for the character and I had an overarching theme, but it's crazy because the story started to read itself to me as we started to go through it, which was awesome. So my book has 4 principles. And I've never shared this. I've shared it maybe on a couple of podcasts, but I've never shared this live like this. And I don't even think you and Alex know what the 4 principles are. So the first principle is that anytime you're diving into your greatness and pursuing something, that you're either being prevented or you're pushing towards something. The second principle is that if you can't find an example, find the proof. And so, the 1954 Roger Bannister story where, all of a sudden, because they found the proof of what could be possible, even though there was no example prior, now all of a sudden you have the obligation and the responsibility to now say, I figured out how to do it because someone else has done it. And if you don't have the example, sometimes you have to become the proof. I'm the first person in my immediate family who, is with the same person, children with the same person, divorce, all of these other things are running through my family. I don't have the example, but I have to be the proof. The third one is there's magic in the quitting moments. Every single moment that you think you're going to quit, you know what I'm talking about, Pastor Q, in the locker room, boom. Every single time that you think that it's time to quit, pivot, and move on, it's actually a moment where you need to get excited because there's magic in those moments. And fourth and foremost, you got to run towards the roar. And so I won't tell you the story, but running towards the roar is the African proverb of, danger and fear. And if you run towards fear, that's exactly the way that you survive mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So those are my 4 points. How do you weave them in? Is that when you read your story so much, your story will read the principles. Most speakers mess up because they go to the stage and they start talking. The best speakers go to the stage and they start teaching.
Dude, come on, preach. Let's go. Dig, y'all. Thomas's book, seriously, so fun, man, to talk. It's true. Clarity comes through doing, and you and us together in the writing, editing process. There is so much clarity that comes from making a decision, knowing that this book needed to come to life and you did it, man. And we're grateful to be some of the ones who helped you do it. So it's one thing for me to hold it up live here. It's another to show a picture of, this little gift box, man, upon the print publishing process, guys. I know Thomas, just the background behind this, because I think it's on the back end of the social media conversation, right? And it allows you to get creative in the ways that you might get your book in front of others. So maybe share this box. I'm sure it's one of many ways. And that'll kind of carry us into the tail end of this call. At the end, we have a PDF we're going to share with you guys to kind of get your own creative juices flowing. But yeah, Thomas, maybe the heart behind this box or other ways that you, get creative with marketing your book.
Yeah. So my beautiful better half came up with this concept. She's a makeup artist, and so she's super creative. She can build something from nothing. And so when I was finishing up the book, she was like, "How are you going to send it out?" And I was like, "I don't know, just put it in an envelope and send it out." And she was like, "Oh, no, you're not going to do that." And so we just started to brainstorm. And so as you can see in the top left portion of that picture, there is a golden shovel, and all that is it's a dessert spoon. And so I went to Amazon and I just started looking for shovels. And so there's a golden shovel. And so on that, it says, dig, or it says, keep digging on the brown piece. And then I sign it, something just personalized. But then again, somebody can take this from the box, put it in their office, put it in their bedroom, put it in their bathroom they can see it wherever. And so again, thinking about dig. Whatever you're going through, think about digging through that situation, that issue. And in the bottom left, those are mustard seeds. And so it's just that reminder to keep planting seeds. Whatever it is that you're doing, wherever it is that you're trying to go, keep planting seeds, because you might not ever see them grow or sprout, but that doesn't mean that your work goes in vain. And then I put a note in there, and it's kind of like a marketing tool, but it's just personalized. So I would say, "Hey, Dale, I just wanted to send you a copy of my most recently published book. I I hope this book inspires you and your team. Because what I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, if you like the book, bring me into your company, your organization, and I'll tell them and I'll speak to them personally one-on-one about this, about the concepts that we just talked about. And then I sign it. And so it came in a really cool box. I don't have any, a box, and then I put like the little crinkly things. And again, just to personalize, make it feel special, because again, to the world, I'm pretty much dead. No one has seen me since December 31st, 2000 and whatever it was, 19. And so now all of a sudden they go, whoa, I got a box. You sent me a box. I'm so special. It's not you're posting these boxes and you're saying, hey, Jason, hey, Dale, hey, Mark, hey, Anthony, look at what I just accomplished. I'm sending this to you personally because you mean that much. Again, privacy over popularity wins. And I'm quoting David Green, who wrote one of my favorite books, The 48 Laws of Power, is that create value through scarcity. And so the less they see me, the more I can charge. And I can tell all of my customers and all of my clients, you won't be able to find this message that I'm going to teach to your organization anywhere else. You can see me speak, but you can't see this material. And so again, with the marketing as well as the special aspect of this, I mean, it's been received really well, and I'm excited to continue to do more things like this.
Yeah, man, thank you so much for sharing. The box is so cool. We, like I mentioned, guys, we're going to send out this PDF after this call. It's one of the ways we want to give y'all a real tangible exercise to think through, your gift to the world, and whether you're a past, present, future author, it's so fun to think about this resource, that Thomas has now in his book, Dig. But then by going the extra mile, seriously, just a few dollars, putting in extra effort, the impact that makes on someone. And so, we just kind of put this little 3-part, hey, mail it. What could you include in a package with your book, just like Thomas did? Gift it. 5 organizations kind of in your ecosystem, would appreciate getting a book like this. And then a handwritten note. So write it, an example of something you would write alongside that kind of packaging and promotion. Just so cool, man. Proud of you. And maybe we have one more time for one more question. Would you? Yeah, Dale, raise your hands, and then we can.
Thomas, this was so good. This was.
Thanks, buddy.
There's so many thoughts all of us have. This was. I just want to tell you, man, this was fantastic. So, Will and Alex, thank you. It's so encouraging to get around people like this. I can imagine playing on your team with you, especially if there's 60 other guys like you. But just thank you, man. This is fantastic. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Any other questions for Thomas?
I see David has one, but if David and I see Annika has one too. But if David, you want my information, or if you want to stay online after, I got a couple minutes, I can answer that. Or if that was a Will and Alex question. But Annika, hi.
Hi. I've talked to some literary agents and editors at publishing houses that really want to see social media as like proof that you have a platform and can move books. So I don't know if you've been through traditional publishers for any of your books. Okay. Do you have like ways that you'd recommend convincing an agent or publisher of here's proof that I will be able to sell books? Like, would it be just like the number of speaking engagements you do per year on average, or any other like ways of concrete proof for that?
Yeah, I've never been asked that question, and I don't have an expertise. I guess it's I don't know, and I don't want to say something that is completely off the wall. Will, Alex?
No.
Yeah, I would just say Thomas is able to show, like, he's able to show all this, his history of all the speaking engagements he's done. So a literary agent's going to look at that, or whoever is going to say, okay, he's doing 40, 50 events per year. His average audience is 100 people. Like they just know a guy like Thomas can move books in that way. Marissa?
I was going to say Marissa, raise your hand, who's brilliant in this area as well.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marissa, but I actually work with a company called Smith Publicity. And I recently gotten the chance to meet Alan Will through NSA and some other just great channels. And so we actually are a company that's been around for 26 years and work in book publicity and marketing, and work with authors from all different camps. And so I wanted to add into that because we work with a lot of not just a hybrid and self-published, but also traditionally published authors, that you really hit the nail on the head there with the speaking. You know, social media platforms absolutely can be helpful to the traditional agents and publishers. It is something that they're looking for, but it's platform overall truly that we find. And I want to, you know, emphasize that it is not just social media platforms that they're just looking at, but it really is the overall audience that you can bring into it. And so whether it's coming from speaking engagements and other workshops or other, you know, individuals you're connected with, if you happen to have other individuals who are part of your network from an influential perspective. So maybe you don't have a certain social media following, but you know others who do, who can help you with promotion in certain ways. And then, you know, we always emphasize that emails are the most powerful currency that you can have. And so, you know, even if you have a really great newsletter too, that's something that can be really powerful and attract attention from agents and publishers. So it's not just limited to social media, but it is that overall platform that is important there. So appreciate the opportunity to throw that in.
Thank you.
That's a great word, Marissa, because James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, if you all have seen his book, he sold millions of copies, millions. He's on the bestseller list every week since like 2019. It all started, he had his email newsletter first, then he did the book. So Marissa, that's a great word. Thanks for chiming in.
Yeah, certainly. And I think too with social media, it's if it is something that feels like it's, you know, important to you or something you want to focus on, it's really focusing on where your target audience lives and only zeroing in on one particular platform. I'm a lover of all things LinkedIn personally. I think that that's just a really beautiful place of sharing thought leadership and knowledge and everything. And so, you know, when I do find myself scrolling through LinkedIn a little bit, I actually find I'm getting some really great value there versus, you know, some of the mindless scrolling that can come with other platforms. And LinkedIn just becomes such a beautiful place of not just the networking that it was originally meant to be, but also very much just a home for thought leadership sharing and an overall community. So I think that it's, don't spread yourself too thin. If you do embark on social media, just focus on one platform that your target audience really spends time in.
Yeah, Marissa, that's great. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, Thomas, would you say as we wrap this up, any final charge you have for us on the call? Many of us are authors, aspiring authors, speakers. What would be your final encouragement to us just moving forward in the week?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've learned through becoming a father, I wasn't a father when I wrote my first book, and it is like, you know, becoming a parent. And I think the coolest thing is that I've learned this, is that if God trusts me enough to be a parent, then that child deserves me to be my best. And I think that the same thing when it comes to writing books is that if there's a message inside of your heart and there's a desire to write it, then I believe that the world deserves to read it. And so for you, it's not about, you know, how much fear you have or what are they going to say about you or this. Your first book, because I know it, God doesn't put one book inside people. Your first book isn't going to be as good as your second. And I promise you, your second isn't going to be as good as your third. And so you're going to keep getting better. But in order to get better, you got to start.
Just like that. Come on. Well, Thomas, what's the best way that these folks can reach out to you?
So my Instagram handle is, so Alex Will, you guys got my email, which is thomas@thomasrwilliams.com. Go to the website, www.thomasrwilliams.com. There's an opportunity for you to send me a note. And again, I saw there was a couple of questions in here. So if people have questions, you know, feel free to utilize that or get my contact from Will or Alex, and we could definitely chat.
Fantastic. Well, y'all, thanks so much for your time. We're a little bit ahead, so we'll get that PDF out to you to do that exercise in the next couple of weeks, and then be on the lookout for our next monthly coaching call next month, and then also circle NSA, the conference that's going to be in Thomas's neck of the woods for next year. We would love to see you all there. So enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we'll see y'all next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Thomas. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
See y'all.
Roll Tide, Alex.
Go Mizzou, baby. The start of the undefeated season starts tonight, Bo.
I'm on it.